Digital singles have become the latest trend for male Seiyuu artists and 2D groups. However, most of the times, these songs make their way into the full CD releases down the road. When a Seiyuu artist or 2D group releases multiple digital singles leading up to an album, and that album includes all those songs and barely any new, aren't digital singles ruining the fun that should be reserved for full-length albums? In this episode, let's talk about what digital singles are, how important are they for an artist's career, and how this trend keeps music alive, but also removes all the novelty of their full-length albums. Let's kick off this episode of Seiyuu Lounge. Welcome to Seiyuu Lounge. I am your host Vanessa, and today's topic is the rise of digital singles in the world of Seiyuu artists and 2D groups. You and I will be picking up from where I left off in the previous episode. To sum it all up, digital singles seem to have started to take over for male Seiyuu artists. King Records has been focusing a lot on that, with Mamoru Miyano and Yumo Uchida being particularly intense in that regard in their recent releases. Yumo Uchida released a series of digital singles, but all ended up in the new album Why, whereas Mamoru Miyano's digital single Sing a Song Together gets a re-release, but now as a physical single, months after the release. Those were the two recent Seiyuu that most recently started to bet a lot on digital singles. But there have been Seiyuu such as Gakuto Kajiwara, Daiki Yamashita, Shota Aoi, and Jin Ogasawara in recent years to go all out on these. So I mentioned that releasing a series of digital singles to only release a full album soon after was pointless in a way. All this is because fans who purchase digital singles will feel less inclined to purchase a physical album. There's also the issue of becoming too present to the point that no music makes an impact, as well as the fact that artists will be charging twice or even thrice for the same song that is featured in different release formats throughout the year. But let's dive in to understand why digital singles have started to be common for male Seiyuu artists, what they are, how different they can be from physical singles, the advantages and disadvantages of releasing digital singles, and how being too present can have the opposite effect on their fans. Stick around because I've got all the answers for you. What are digital singles? Digital singles are individual songs released independently of a full-length album and made available at online stores or streaming platforms. These standalone releases have gained significant traction over the past 2 decades, thanks to the rapid increase of digital music platforms, streaming services, and a shift in consumer preferences. They arrived to revolutionize the music industry that up until then was focused on physical releases. And how did digital releases change the panorama? In this case, digital singles. Simple things: instant satisfaction, enhanced visibility, and cost-effective production. With digital singles, artists can respond to current events, trends, or any creative impulses by releasing a digital single without the lengthy and expensive production process associated with a full-length album. At the same time, digital singles allow artists to maintain a continuous presence in the music industry. Each release creates a buzz and keeps their fans engaged. And let's not forget that producing and distributing music is quite expensive, so with digital singles, the recording and distribution costs are considerably lower than producing an entire album. For new artists and artists from small or indie music labels, it helps reduce the financial risk for artists and enables them to experiment with new sounds and styles. The evolution of Seiyuu artists and 2D groups. To understand why digital singles are on the rise, let's first look at the evolution of Seiyuu artists and 2D groups. So in the past, Seiyuu artists and 2D groups primarily released physical CDs. Japanese fan culture is all about collecting. There are still a lot of physical stores such as Tower Records, HMV and Tsutaya, and usually artists add special bonuses that make those physical CDs all the more attractive to fans. However, things have changed a lot in the past couple of years, especially since the COVID-19 pandemic shifted consumer habits all over the world, which ended up impacting the music industry in Japan. Without the possibility of going to the store and have the experience of choosing and picking the CD they want, fans started to purchase music online and even stream it. Without the possibility to go to the studio to record, Seiyuu artists started to craft songs and release them as time passed. And because production of CDs and the sort was halted during that time, music labels started to turn to digital singles. It is cost-effective and reaches everyone in Japan as well as around the world if they license music internationally. After the pandemic subdued and everything returned to a new normal, the habit of releasing digital singles stayed with some artists and specific music labels. Indie artists have been doing that for ages, as digital singles cost less than physical releases. But now, major music labels were joining in the movement. As such, more and more Seiyuu artists started to release digital singles. Due to that, Seiyuu artists and 2D groups are no longer limited to their local audience. The internet has opened up a global stage for them. Digital platforms have become their new arenas and they're using them to their advantage. That is positive. Positive impacts on an artist's career. So digital singles are important in a Seiyuu artist's career strategy. Remember, successful Seiyuu artists release a new album every 2 years, and in between albums, they may release 2 up to 4 singles to be active, build their repertoire, and keep their fans excited about their music. There are exceptions to this though. Rock artists, for example, seldom release singles, instead they release EPs in between albums. Now, not every single needs to be physical, and not all singles need to have 2 or 3 songs. Sometimes just 1 song, an intermission between full-length albums, or a couple of digital singles spread throughout the year can quench that thirst for new music while being relatively cheap for the artist to produce and distribute. So what are the positives that we can take from Seiyuu artists adding digital singles to their career strategy? Well, you have improved engagement with their fans. I've said it before that when a Seiyuu artist releases music too spread out, or releases music only in the spur of the moment, which can take years to happen, they miss out on the opportunity to be present as solo artists. Look at Toshiki Masuda, for example. He tends to spend at least 1 year between CD releases, and I'm not even breaking this down into full albums, EPs or singles. He simply doesn't release music that frequently. Masuda is so inconsistent as a solo artist when it comes to his release schedule that I still wonder how he managed to, whenever he releases music, to almost smash sales records. It's crazy. I believe that were he not as popular as he is, he would definitely feel the impact of long periods without releasing music in his sales. All this to say, artists should be present with some frequency. 1 single per year should be enough, but if their schedules are packed, which usually are, perhaps a digital single opens up the possibility of being active while juggling their acting and music careers like crazy while keeping their fans happy. With digital singles, Seiyuu artists can keep fans engaged, maintaining their visibility and relevance in the music industry. This can lead to increased streams, a better social media engagement, and potentially a bigger live show audience. At the same time, with digital singles, all boundaries are torn apart and Seiyuu artists have the freedom to play around with their creativity and try new things. Jin Ogasawara's 2022 digital single series, which includes the groundbreaking Black Cat, is a perfect example of that. It served him to try new things, to have a go at writing his own lyrics, to bring in composers to work with him, and even trying different singing styles. If all of that suddenly happened within an album instead of digital singles, I believe it would have been considered chaotic, without a conductive thread or story, or too spread out in concept and sound. And believe me, all those critics would be fair. That much experimentation within an album shows a lack of direction. But with the digital single series, he was able to try all of that with a minimal cost, while keeping fans engaged and curious about what he was going to do next. Also, digital singles become an opportunity for targeted marketing and promotion, allowing artists to build momentum for an eventual album release. Of course, done in excess, several singles in a row, can have the opposite effect, so these should be done in good measure and well thought out in order for the artist to reap the rewards from teasing their fans. Negative impacts on an artist's career. So not everything is perfect, and that shows when you look at all the downsides that digital singles can have in an artist's career. Lack of cohesion in their repertoire is the first one to stand out. The release of singles within the context of a full-length album often contributes to a cohesive storytelling experience. The Seiyuu artist can craft a narrative that flows throughout the album, allowing listeners to connect with the music on a deeper level. Quick succession singles, however, usually lack this storytelling element, which can impact the emotional connection that listeners have with the Seiyuu artist's work. Releasing singles without a cohesive album can make it challenging to tell a consistent story or establish a clear musical identity. At the same time, releasing too many digital singles too frequently may overwhelm the audience and dilute the impact of each release. Oversaturation is a real issue that can arise. Spacing out releases or saving songs for a full-length album allows artists to build anticipation and create a sense of suspense among their fans. If that doesn't happen, and digital singles are released in quick succession or end up being released or re-released in different ways, the anticipation that fans usually get from having music releases spaced out is nowhere to be found. This is a well-known strategy for Seiyuu artists or artists in general to sell well. Space out their CD releases, as those can enhance the overall listening experience and lead to increased engagement when the music is finally unveiled. Also, releasing singles at a slower pace, or basically as a part of a full-length album, can maintain fan engagement over an extended period, something that digital singles released in quick succession can't do. If the digital singles are released at a slower pace, they give listeners more time to interact with the Seiyuu artist's work, discuss it with others, and get excited about the potential album release. To wrap up this section, as I said before, digital singles have poor sales numbers. Regardless if basically we are talking about, for example, the pop star Mamoru Miyano, who caters to a wider audience, or for example Jin Ogasawara, who caters to a niche audience. For Seiyuu artists planning to release a full-length album, rapid-fire single releases may negatively affect album sales. If the audience has already consumed most of the album's content through digital singles, they may feel or be less inclined to purchase the complete album, potentially impacting the artist's revenue. So make a note, it's not because a Seiyuu is popular that their digital singles will sell well. That has been proven time and time again for digital as well as physical releases. If fans know that an album or an EP may be in the works after those digital singles, they will save their money for the EP or album instead of purchasing the digital singles. As such, digital singles may have good stream numbers on streaming platforms worldwide, but their sales numbers are on the down low. But once again, each stream pays the artist 1 cent, so that's not a lot of money by the end of the day, not even enough to pay for the production costs, no matter how little they were. All this to say, releasing digital singles may lead to a lack of cohesion or direction in a Seiyuu artist's career, oversaturation that may overwhelm their fans and also lead to poor sales. But if that happens, why do Seiyuu artists choose digital singles over physical CDs? Well, for a variety of reasons. For starters, the music industry has changed in the last couple of years. Physical media may still be around and will be for years to come if the resurgence of vinyl is anything to go by, but digital releases have become more common. Digital singles have fewer costs and fewer risks associated with them. For those on independent labels, the cost and risk of producing and distributing physical CDs can be an issue. Digital singles offer a more cost-effective and accessible alternative. Be on top of trends, try new things, and be creative without the shackles of a full-length album is also another reason. Digital singles require less production time, and if they are experimental in some way, they do not even require a producer, in this case being self-produced by the Seiyuu artists in question. Worldwide reach is important for Seiyuu artists. With minimal effort, their music is instantly available to a global audience, eliminating the logistical challenges of physical distribution. All in all, digital singles have fundamentally transformed the music industry, offering both opportunities and challenges for Seiyuu artists. These releases allow for immediate satisfaction, improved engagement, and a cost-effective production. But artists must be careful to balance their output to maintain a coherent artistic identity. Too many digital singles followed by albums that include all of those, or selling the same song or digital single time and time again in physical editions, are two ways to strip the magic off of digital singles. They end up oversaturating fans and will eventually be met with poor sales. As the music industry continues to evolve, Seiyuu artists and their teams must adapt to make strategic decisions about the format and frequency of their CD releases or single releases, to best serve their careers and not bore, overwhelm, or enrage their fans in the process. And believe me, that's a fine line to thread. So why are digital singles becoming common for Seiyuu artists and 2D groups? Well, the reasons are clear: accessibility, cost-effectiveness, flexibility, fan engagement, and basically the evolving landscape of Seiyuu and 2D music industry that is basically demanding those. Still, digital singles are not to be used all the time, as instead of bringing attention and excitement to an artist, they can do the opposite. Too many releases, especially in quick succession, can lead to oversaturation, fans losing interest and excitement, and lead to low sales numbers. Not to say that Seiyuu artists can't use digital singles in their strategy. They can. Seiyuu artists that are self-producing their music, for example, Junta Terashima, or are from small music labels, for example, Jin Ogasawara, should have digital singles as their main strategy to save on production costs and still ensure their fans get new music from time to time. Does it make sense for artists from music labels to abuse this concept? Well, no. Digital singles can be used to create hype for new CDs, but you don't need 3, 4, or 5 singles in a year to build hype for an album. You need only one really good song to build hype. Then let the album speak for itself when the time arrives to release it to the fans. Digital singles can be used when Seiyuu artists have lots of new ideas but nothing that will really fit well together in an album. Think of those like short stories. They are short and sweet, the right length, no need for fluff. Well, digital singles are just like that. You do not need to necessarily create an intricate story around several songs, you just need to have each song with its own identity. It works well in that way for concepts and stories that do not need an album. Digital singles are also perfect to bridge the gap with fans from all over the world. For all these reasons and more I mentioned in this episode, digital singles are a great tool to make Seiyuu artists active, tease their fans with what will be new albums down the line, and reach a wider audience. But abusing those, selling the songs twice or thrice in different formats stemming from a digital single, is not okay. Having almost a full-length album of digital singles and not even half the album comprised of new songs is not okay and doesn't make any sense. It's actually predatory. As someone that collects CDs, yes, I am still one of those people that still purchase physical CDs, I've come to learn that I only purchase EPs and albums, and that's because, in the case of Seiyuu pop artists, I avoid paying twice for the same song, And for Seiyuu rock artists, I end up getting a lot of value with unique CDs that I know are story-focused and the songs will never be featured in another release soon after. Of course, I don't know about you. So tell me, are you the type of person that purchases all the digital singles your favorite Seiyuu artist releases and then the albums that include those singles? Or do you purchase just the albums? Or are you only a streamer type of fan? Let me know in the comments on YouTube, and remember, leave your comments as complex or as simple as they may be, and you can be featured on upcoming episodes of Seiyuu Lounge. If you enjoyed this episode and don't want to miss the hand that feeds HQ's weekly male Seiyuu and music-related content, hit the subscribe button. And if you are listening to this episode on a podcast listening platform, please consider following the podcast and leaving a review. Leaving a review is really simple and helps other people find this podcast and fall in love with male Seiyuu artists and 2D groups. I'll return next week with another episode of Seiyuu Lounge. Thank you for listening and see you guys around.